Hey guys, welcome to our third and final Lunch and Learn for this wellness plan year. We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. It's a pretty stressful time of year for a lot of people. So today we have Amy Smith from Integrative Therapies here in Greensboro to share with us some information about stress management. So let's welcome Amy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I got to get used to a microphone, so let me. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I was told I have a very low voice, so I'll try to get a good balance here. I happen to work at Integrative Therapies as a biofeedback therapist. And a lot of people look at me kind of funny when I say that, because 9 out of 10 people don't know what a biofeedback therapist is. Does anybody here know what a biofeedback therapist does? Biofeedback is a way of getting information back about your body so you can make change. So what I do is see patients with either back and neck troubles. I see people with high blood pressure, with anxiety, with different and various stress-related disorders. And what we do is we hook them up to monitors and we monitor their physiological information, feed that back to them so they can make change. So essentially what we're doing is getting information about the biology, feeding it back so they can make change. So today I'm going to go over what we call one of our modalities. So we're going to talk about heart rate variability. And we also have a wonderful volunteer. Greg is going to volunteer. So we'll actually get to demonstrate. You could see what I would do in a session because it's pretty interesting, the information that can come back just from a clip on the ear. So we'll get to that. I'll go through the PowerPoint. And then we'll actually sit with Greg and do some feedback, okay? So you on stress. Okay.
I'll go ahead and get stressed up.
Yes, let's get stressed up. Let's get stressed up, okay. So we're gonna look at heart rate variability. Has anyone heard of heart rate variability? Okay, good. How did you hear about it? Did you? Oh, you? Okay. Did it? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Heart rate variability? And it might be a new term. It's something that we've been using for about the past 10 years. We use a program called HeartMath, and that's what we'll be demonstrating later. But heart rate variability is the pattern of the beat-to-beat changes, and I'll kind of read this to you. See, heart rate variability is the pattern of your heart rhythms. When your heart rhythms are rhythmic and balanced, you feel great and your immune system is working great. When your heart rhythms are erratic, you feel stress and frustration. Learning to change your own heart rhythms is one of the great practices you can learn to improve the quality of your health and your heart. So a lot of people don't know that they can change their heart rhythm, and that is my job. So I actually teach people how to change their heart rhythm and their heart rates. Okay. So it's a subtle change of there's a high and a low to the heart rhythm. And when we get Greg up here, you're going to be able to see those highs and lows to the heart rhythm. It's the measure of the beat-to-beat changes. It can be shown on a graph, which is what we're going to do. And the heart rate speeds up as we inhale, and it calms down as we exhale. So the average heart rate, when you say my pulse is 70 or 80, that's your average, because there's a natural high and a low to that heart rhythm. This, I promise, will make more sense and not be so technical as soon as we get a little farther into it. Okay. So the average heart rate for most people is 70, 80. And what we try to do is get them to have that increase at least 10 points, 10 to 20 points when we're working with this process. Okay. When we learn to change the heart rhythm and make it smooth and coherent, it looks, sorry, I'm going to tell you I'm really bad at PowerPoints, so I usually kind of get up there and have the person in front of me, but I'm going to try to go through this, and then you'll see me be myself again. But anyway, okay, so the top little graph there is a coherent heart rhythm. And we see this when a person is thinking of something that they're happy about, that they're feeling great about, that we see a nice natural sinusoidal rhythm. It's nice and smooth, and we call that coherence, when there's a relationship between the highs and the lows of the heart rhythm. Can everybody see that on the top? There's that nice relationship. So those are consistency in the variables, which is what we call coherence. Then we go feeling stressed on the bottom. This is what the heart rhythm does when we feel stressed. So it changes it changes with our feelings and our thoughts. Okay? Any questions about that? So every thought creates cellular change. And some people do think that that's kind of a deep statement. It doesn't mean damage, but it means cellular change. So it's our thought that actually creates a perception that changes our physiology through breathing and the connection to the brain. And there's the brain. Okay? How thoughts create your health. Your thoughts are more than fleeting moments created by your brain. In many ways, your thoughts are your brain. Every thought creates a neural connection. Think a thought often enough, and the neural connection will get strong, particularly if there's an emotional attachment to it. This is what creates different states of the nervous and emotional system. So when we see people that have constant negative thoughts, it can create a constant negative state in the body. And we have a saying that neurons that fire together wire together, so negativity really does have an overall effect on the nervous system through just that. It's just a direct effect from the brain to the nervous system with negativity. Now the positive to that is that there's also a positive effect if we have positive emotions. The changes in the nervous system start with perception, which leads to changes in respiration. The changes in respiration change the limbic system, which is the primitive portion of the brain that gives us signals. See, there I go. Okay. That gives us signals that we're in danger or not in danger. So essentially, has anybody heard of the fight or flight response? This is an example of the fight or flight response. So we have a perception of a danger. Let's say a caveman is going out, he's looking for dinner, and he sees a tiger. His perception most of the time would be that that's danger. So he perceives danger, but then his respiration changes. So it's the rate of breath that then directly links to the limbic system, which governs emotions. And the big part of the brain that everybody's talking about right now is the amygdala. That's our fear, that's our little area that's fear response, because it's there to protect us. It's an evolutionary plan to protect our bodies against danger. When we trigger that amygdala, it doesn't know the difference of whether you've got a late deadline or a stressful email coming in or you are facing a tiger. Because it all starts with perception. If you perceive that as danger, then that is what is interpreted in the body. So let's say the caveman goes out and he sees a tiger, but it's his pet tiger. Is he going to have the same response? No. So that is really powerful. It's kind of, when we really think about that, it's a powerful thing that we can actually change our responses to stress in our atmosphere, in our environment, and in our world. And that's what is so fantastic about my job, because I can really tell people how to change the way stress affects their body so that you can create a more positive atmosphere for your health and for your well-being. Okay. Sounds complicated, and I probably got ahead of myself, because I usually do, because it is. And there's the tiger. I'm like I said, too much coordination here. It's complicated. That fight or flight response, it's just an inappropriate stress response that many of us are experiencing all throughout the day. Maybe not to the full-fledged, when you slam on your brakes and you feel shaky and you feel like your adrenaline is your heart's pumping and your adrenaline's flowing. That's an extreme fight or flight response, but many people are having small fight or flight responses all throughout the day. And what I say to these people that are coming in and trying to kind of get control of this is that stress is cumulative. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is you're born with a certain baseline of your nervous system. And when you add stress, it raises. It raises up a notch or two, and you get used to it and you're fine. And then you have some more stress and it raises up another notch. And you're okay, you're still okay. But then maybe you've had enough stress and you're at a place where there's not a lot needs to happen for your pot to be boiling over. Have you ever had a situation where you're like, I really didn't respond right to that. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've had this happen before and I haven't, I usually can kind of handle this. But that's what happens. So we do kind of increase the baseline of the nervous system. And as a biofeedback therapist, or even what I'm going to teach you today, what I'm going to do is talk about ways to start notching that baseline back down so that you can create more room for error, essentially. Because we're not going to live in a stress-free environment. We're not going to have jobs that are not going to produce a little bit of stress, or a lot of stress. But the way we handle it is definitely within our control. Okay, the simple but extremely effective way to handle inappropriate stress responses is, can anybody guess? Yes, very good. Breathing. So I had some people definitely say that. Now, breathing is definitely the way that we control the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. I'm throwing those out there because we're going to talk about that some more. Breathing, again, triggers the first cranial nerve, which is the olfactory, and then it goes into the limbic system. So diaphragmatic breathing is the way that we control the autonomic nervous system. So the diaphragm, you can see here, I don't know if can you see that dome that's under the ribs? It's a thin sheet of muscle that separates the abdomen from the chest. It's like a dome, a little bit more concave than a frisbee, but it sits up on between the abdomen and the chest. Okay. So that is what we're going to learn today and how we're going to control the nervous system. Okay? Change your breathing, change your nervous system, change your perception, and that also can change the actual outcome of the situation in the nervous system. So when you change the way your body experiences stressful events and situations, the heart rhythms can kind of go into coherence. That's the goal, is that we change the way our bodies respond to the stressors, okay? There's heart rate coherence. And now we're going to try deep breathing. You all might have learned deep breathing before. Have you learned that before? Okay. Is anybody able to do some diaphragmatic breathing? Okay, good. We've got some yeses in there. All right. So the thing about the breathing, and maybe we can go ahead and start getting Greg hooked up over here because I think we're about to finish here. But the way we're going to do the breathing, because what I really like is for us to hook him up, if that's okay. And then you can see him before we learn the breathing, because then you can kind of see the before and after, because if we teach him, then he's going to, he might show off a little bit. Okay. All right. So we're going to be hooking Greg up. I can find that little thingy here. Sorry. This is a little light emitting diode, and it's going to go on his ear, and we'll actually be able to pick up his heart rhythm with this little monitor. So we can get this baseline and show Greg, it does, reading that on a PowerPoint, I think, doesn't even give it justice. You've got to see what we're talking about here. Let's just hope the computer works. That's where I'll get stressed if I don't. Okay. We're past the point of no return. It's calibrating right now and getting his information. Okay. So this is a typical program. This is what it looks like. You'll see a few things. You see in the middle of the screen the current heart rate is 75, and you'll see a fluctuation in that number. What's coming across the screen right now is his heart rhythm. Okay? And what you see in the bottom, there's 3 ways to get feedback. We don't have any auditory hooked up to it, but we would hear a different sound when he's producing a different level of coherence. And low means he's not in the low. It means that there's no coherence. Medium means he's kind of getting there, and high coherence is our goal. We want that green to have the largest number and the largest percentage, and we want that little bar to raise right there. So now this is the thing. We see his heart rhythm. Now, what I love to do at first is that, you know, if Greg has any singing ability, then do you mind singing in front of people?
Yeah,
You do? Okay, so watch his heart rate. Watch his heart rate. Look what his heart rate did. As soon as I measured. Okay, that's just one of the things. So even, he got a little stressed. Like, I really don't want to sing.
What point do I start seasoning?
That's right. So I do want to show in a fun way that we do have a change in heart rhythm when we do get a little stressed. Look at that. So very good. I think, I really don't think he wants to sing, and I'm sorry, you know, we're not going to get that performance. I'm not going to get, but you can see then the low coherence started in there because his heart rate became very erratic. Just with that thought, because he wasn't even talking, but just with the thought of singing, it created that response. So this is why. There we go. How about that? So I think a lot of people then can identify with thoughts. I mean, singing is a stressor, but can you imagine some things that are really bigger stressors in your lives and what that is actually doing to your heart rhythm, okay? So now we're going to talk about the breathing. Now that we've got Greg hooked up, we can see that he is definitely responding to stressor of singing. Now we want to see if he can calm that heart rhythm down with diaphragmatic breathing. So what we're going to do, is it okay if I step over right here? Or am I, okay, so everybody can see me? I'm going to have everybody, maybe you can still see me here. Can everybody see what I'm doing? Hand on the chest and hand on the belly. Can everybody put a hand on the chest and hand on the belly? Okay, and what we're going to do is just take a deep breath, whatever, nice deep breath, and when you're ready, exhale. Okay. What does everybody feel? Does anybody feel their top hand moving or their bottom hand? Top? Top, okay. So what we're really showing right now is that that's chest breathing. Okay, that's not diaphragmatic breathing. We want to use the belly. When we're raising the chest, now think about this. When you're raising the chest, you'll feel tightening in your belly. Most people come into me breathing like this. This is what we call paradoxical breathing. People are breathing opposite of what they need to breathe. Because if the chest is lifting, the abdominal area is tightening. And when it tightens, let's think of that logically. If you're tightening around your lungs, which are like balloons that are supposed to expand, then you're restricting the amount of oxygen that can get into the lungs, right? So if we're doing that, then we have to breathe twice as many times per minute to get the same amount of gas exchange. Now, remember what I said before in that it's the rate of breath that affects our limbic system. If we're breathing more times per minute, we're kind of staying revved. We're keeping that nervous system revved up. It's kind of ready, it's ready for anything at that point. But that's not really a healthy state to be in. So we want to move it down into the belly so that what it kind of looks like and feels like is that when you inhale, you're inflating the belly. And when you're exhaling, you're pulling the belly button back to the spine. You're forcing the carbon dioxide out. Okay? This is going to feel weird to most of you. This is going to feel like work, like you have to concentrate, and that will not stay with you. But because what will happen is it's like a learning curve in the beginning, and it does feel like it's something that's not natural for most people. But you've done this before because you were born breathing diaphragmatically. Babies breathe diaphragmatically. Their little tummies pump up and down. Animals breathe diaphragmatically. Tummies pump up and down. But what happens, and this is the unofficial Amy Smith explanation, but what happens, I think it's around school age that we start to put tight clothes on children or, like things with belts, and we tell kids to stand up straight. And what happens when you do that? You restrict your breathing. And then it continues. And I've seen kids as little as 4, and they can can go right back to their diaphragmatic breathing, and some of them, within minutes, whereas an adult might take 6 weeks. So children definitely should be taught this, just really watch, and they can do big bear belly breaths, and when they exhale, really pulling those belly buttons back to the spine to try to get that basic breathing to stay with them instead of going to the chest breathing. So look what's happening over here with Greg. He's working on this, and what we're going to add right now is a count. So when you're practicing diaphragmatic breathing, you want to come up with a count. Maybe like a 4 count inhale and or a 4 count exhale. It could be a 5. Your number is your number. So you can do whatever's comfortable, starting out with an equal count, but then getting to where your exhale is longer than your inhale. When you're exhaling, it's tripping the little switch in the brain that governs the parasympathetic portion of the nervous system, which calms us down. So the more rhythmic and calm and longer the exhale, the more relaxed the body gets. So depending on your situation, a lot of times to create the alert, mind, calm body, we do an equal 4 in and 4 out, or a 5 in and 5 out. But when you're trying to really relax through stress, or you're trying to get to sleep, we go to the 4 in and then the 8 or even 10 exhale. Okay, because you'll start to notice that that's really what calms you down. You'll see the exhale is what's making his heart rhythm a little more smooth and coherent. The counting is what helps to quantify the breath. So if he was breathing equally, those heart rhythms would be in that equal sinusoidal rhythm, or very, very close to it. And he's kind of getting there. And it takes a little bit of practice, and sitting in front of everybody, so I kind of give him a hand on that one. But you see the difference. Yeah. So this, he says he doesn't like attention, but I think that was a joke. So, but you look at the changes that are happening with smooth and rhythmic breathing. That's what's making this happen. Now, I have a lot of patients come in and they say, "Why don't I know this? Why didn't the doctor tell me?" Well, for years I felt really frustrated that doctors weren't telling people. I've been working as a biofeedback therapist since 1984, so I've seen a few patients, and I did always wonder, and I was really frustrated. Why aren't the doctors telling people that breathing could really help with anxiety? It can help with stress. It can help with the neck pain or back pain. And then just a couple of years ago, I had a referral with a cardiologist, a pretty high-powered cardiologist, and he was referred from Duke, and he definitely thought biofeedback was woo-woo. He was not willing to come, but he had migraines. And I was a nervous wreck, I'm not gonna lie, because I mean, I don't have all the stats. I can teach this all day long, but I'm like that layperson kind of level of knowledge, and I could teach it to just, but to think I'm going to teach heart rhythm to a doctor was pretty intimidating. And I imagine my heart rhythms were kind of really up there. But I showed him, put him on the equipment, and I showed him his heart rhythm. I said, "Now we're going to change your heart rhythm." He says, "You're telling me I'm going to change my heart rhythm?" And I said, "Well, I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to show you, and you're going to do it." Well, interestingly enough, within 2 weeks, he was back to work. He didn't even know this. So I totally revamped my theory that, it's just not taught. And it is the answer to so many things, including this doctor with terrible migraines that he couldn't even work. So I think that you just got to spread the word, amongst yourselves that this breathing is not just for sissies. It's definitely not woo-woo. This is science-based. Biofeedback is all based in science and physiology. It's your anatomy and physiology, and it's how to make it work for you. So we can see also, though, we've got, his heart rate's gone up a little bit. I don't know what was just going on, maybe just thinking about.
I'm focusing on this thing.
Okay.
Does that not mean I'm winning?
That does mean you're winning. So that shows every medium or high, you'll see a little notch in that line right there. And if it went to low, it would go back to 0. So you can see what we have right here is 36% in the low Oh, he just got a little musical reward that you guys didn't get to hear, but so that was good. He's staying in the zone. 35% in the low, 21% in the blue, you can see that in the middle, and then 44% in the high. And we have different levels of this. It goes from low to extra high, and what we would do is as soon as a person gets to be able to really produce 60% of high coherence at a certain level, then we up that level. So he's in the first level, and he would soon be advancing to the second level to get that. And what that means is that he would be having to create definitely more smooth rhythmic breath and more consistency between those highs and the lows before we move up. But it was really good. I think he's done some deep breathing before. Have you done some? Not at all? No, that was really good then. Okay. So right now, I would love to open up to any kind of questions. I've been rambling, but I'd really like to address any questions or concerns that you all might have about stress and anxiety or pain and whatever sleep. We can talk about sleep as well. I'd like to see if there's anything I can do in that area. Questions? Does anybody, so you all don't have any stress? I mean, too stressed to ask?
Somebody else do this and see what you're saying.
We could would someone else like to do that? I'd love to have two people because it does definitely show. We'll stop. So look at the changes that he's had here. You can take that off. Perfect. And I got this. The changes in the beginning, you can see all the, kind of the erratic heart rhythm. And then as he learned the breathing, look what he was creating here. So how then do you get to do this automatically? You actually have to keep practicing. So I have people practice like once an hour. It can take as little as 6 seconds to put stress management into your world. And it's just, maybe put a sticky note or something on your phone that just tells you maybe to do a few seconds of really deep diaphragmatic breathing that you count to. And I'm going to give you the name of a free app that you can download called Breathe to Relax, and it's for Android and iOS. That will give you a pacer, and you can kind of set that up. But using that throughout the day. So the more you repeat this breathing, the better you get at it. The more you practice, it's like practicing a sport or an instrument. The more you practice, the better you get. And not only that, the nervous system starts to notch down. So that when you're revving, the more you practice stress management, the more you can go back to baseline. Because it's not realistic to think that we're all going to be zen all throughout the day. It's just not going to happen. So I think that one thing that I do also need to mention in terms of stress management is when we're talking about the nervous system, one of the first questions that I ask people, how much caffeine and sugar do you have? Caffeine and sugar are nervous system stimulants. So when patients are coming to me and they want to learn how to manage stress, I mean, it's my due diligence to say, caffeine is a psychotropic drug. No matter who you are, it has an effect on you. I don't know. People say it doesn't affect me. I'm like, wow, how about that? You have an immunity to a psychotropic drug. But it is something to be aware of because that does stimulate the sympathetic nervous system response, as well as sugar. So these things, a lot of times, I mean, I had a 15-year-old boy that was being brought in for anxiety. He was on all this medication. And when I asked about his diet, he was having like 8 Mountain Dews a day.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, right there, I'm saying, you're gonna make my job really easy here because I mean, basically, I think if we take the 8 Mountain Dews away, you're gonna feel less anxiety. So I win here. But the mother had a hard time. The mother was having a hard time denying the children anything, and was like, okay, I think we can do this. So the kid on his own started to replace some of the Mountain Dews with water. I think we got him down to about 2, which I was extremely pleased about. But there's a significant response, especially, you'll notice it, especially as you start to wean off of it. And I'm not a cold turkey girl, or, I think some people are. But weaning off is probably a little better than stopping because you're gonna have a rebound. If you just stop caffeine or sugar, you're not gonna feel really great. So weaning off, replacing those things that you're, eating processed and sugar things replacing that with whole foods or water, eventually when you do have it, when you do kind of have some of the sugar, you'll notice the effect that it's actually been having, that you've normalized. And we have that a lot. We have a lot of people that come in that have normalized some pain or stress because of some stimulants that they're having in their diet. Okay, so Danielle, look at her going right into coherence.
I can fix that.
So what happens when, is there a trigger that we could maybe get?
Yeah, Danielle. When we get through with this, I need you to go down, you gotta expedite some cabinets in from Hoffman, we gotta build material.
Look at her, okay, so look at her heart rate. Look at her heart rate.
By the way, the vet called and your Kathy's on March 10th.
I'm gonna leave right now.
So look at that. Now she knows that's not even a real thing right now, but or maybe it's too close to home, right? Maybe it was just too close. The cat got it. Okay. While animals can really bring down the increase heart rate coherence, they can also kind of jack it up there when we think they're sick. But look at what happened there. Just the thought, or just kind of replicating a response that she probably has quite a lot. And most of us can sort of start to identify. So what we want to do is when we identify, let's say an expedite seemed to be the key word there that might have gotten her heart rate up. Expedite, was that it?
Judge Starkey's looking for you.
Okay.
I just took a whole bunch of parts in the inventory, but I think I remember which ones I got.
Yeah, okay. We
We
are wrecking her.
Trying to get some work done up here, okay?
There you go. So what do we do? When she's got an automated response to this, that was pretty quick. It was something that she's sensitized to, right? And she's already sensitized to it. So that's the response. So how do we change that? When you've kind of got something like this going on, how do we change it? Well, what we do is we start to pair stress with relaxation. So let's say, I think the word expedite or certain name might have increased her heart rate. So when you think that name or the word expedite, then what you would do is use the breathing. So you got to do the breathing with the belly. So your inhale, inflate the belly, and exhale, pull the belly button back to the spine. And I do want to mention that it's important to be doing this with the nose, because that's what creates more control. The nose is what's going to calm you down, and kind of keep your baseline a little bit more even. So every time you have that stressor, or a cue or a worry, just an awareness of one of these, then you do your breathing. Take a nice deep inhale, exhale, pull the belly button back to the spine, breathe out through the nose, and feel that wave of kind of looseness go through your body, feel the tension release, and then go back to your normal activity. As we begin to pair stress with relaxation, let's say there's an email that kind of will prompt that response. As you see that email, take a nice deep inhale, exhale, feel that wave of looseness and limbness, and then go back to your normal activity. As you pair stress with relaxation, we're starting to develop a reflex. So you're going to have a reflex for relaxation instead of revving up. Because right now her reflex is really conditioned. She's conditioned to have a slight stress response to these areas that have caused some stress in her life. Now that doesn't have to, it's not automatic. It's about our perception. So as she kind of can retrain those thoughts and that response, we develop that reflex for relaxation. What we see is within a few weeks, probably within 2 weeks, people start to feel a little different automatically. They start to think, I didn't get quite as upset about that. Because if you really think about your responses, surely you're feeling, sometimes there's a tingly, sometimes you might feel hot, you might get sweaty, you might feel your heart rate increase. You are having a stress response that you've most likely normalized. So as you do this breathing and keep pairing, then you're going to kind of create a new response for the stressful event. Now that doesn't mean that if she goes home and there's a tiger in her living room, that she's not going to respond and the stress response isn't going to be there. But when she's here and someone's gotten parts out or someone needs something expedited, then she's not going to have that wear and tear on her body. Okay? It kind of save it for a big day, save it for a rainy day when you really need it. And the thing to really remember, anytime we're feeling anxiety or stress, exhaling longer than you inhale is going to calm that down. If you know anybody that has panic attacks or gets kind of panicky, you cannot have a panic attack if you're exhaling longer than you inhale. You cannot. So that's something very powerful that I tell the patients, because I do have a lot of people with panic attack. And some of them end up in the hospital, and because it's not overnight, people. It's really been a gradual increase of that nervous system response. It's not like you're, not having any stress and all of a sudden you're hit with a panic attack. You've sensitized. There are things that we really need to pay attention to that we can change our response to, that we're doing automatically right now. And the other thing that we really want to talk about is, the stressors of tablets and cell phones. There's a couple of things about this that, having to respond to them all the time. But the other thing is posturally. Now this is a really fun fact. When we're small and forward, we're tripping the amygdala. So not only is it thoughts and perceptions and breathing, but it's posture. It's posture. Yeah, we've got some people power posturing over here. There's a fantastic TED Talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy, and that's the power posture from Amy Cuddy, from that book, from the TED Talk. I got to see her a couple of weeks ago, and she's fantastic because there's science now that really tells us, and the big thing that I've taken to industry to tell them is that when we're forward and we're really kind of making ourselves small, is our hormonal system changes, our neurotransmitters change. Everything changes with our posture. So when you're kind of feeling stressed and bad, power posture. It physiologically changes, yes. Yep, it changes everything. So posture is a big deal. We're a postural-based clinic at Integrative, and what I mean by that is we're working, because the spine needs to be in balance, we're making sure everybody's in balance. Not just their nervous system, but their physiology, their spine, and their anatomy. So this all is a very holistic approach to health, and that's what we do at Integrative. We have many, many professionals that have different areas of expertise to work on back and neck pain, to work on headaches, to work on people with ulcers or upset stomachs or irritable bowel. So when you find yourself a little bit hunched over those tablets or phones, please prop it up, stay open, and change your physiology. Okay.
And you said breathe in through your nose. Do you exhale through your nose or
No.
exhale through your
Nose, yes, nose. When you're breathing just normally, you want the inhale and exhale to be through the nose. That's where you have most control. I do have some people that'll come in that are stuffy, and they're just stuffy indefinitely. I'm like, we kind of need to go to the doctor and find out. It's not normal to not be able to breathe through your nose. Many people find that they're breathing through their mouth just pure habit. So there's much more control and much more flipping of that switch in the nervous system if you're breathing through the nose. Now, when you're exercising, when you get into the aerobic zone, you're going to be in the, you're at a different level of oxygen intake, and most of the time you're going to exhale through the mouth during that. So once people learn diaphragmatic breathing, I have a lot of patients that say, I get to about mile 1 when I'm jogging and I lose my breath. But they learn diaphragmatic breathing, they learn how to really use the abdominals to assist in that exhale, and can run forever, because it's not a conditioning thing, it's really a breath thing a lot of times for most people. So exhaling is more important than inhaling. The exhale is what you need to focus on. And what happens during people when they start to feel panicky or stressed is that they start to inhale more. And that's what's going to make you breathe more rapidly, and that's tripping that little switch for the sympathetic nervous system. Now, lots of things are happening besides just that switch in the nervous system. You're getting adrenaline, you're getting cortisol, you're getting a lot of wear and tear. The neurotransmitters are changing. You're getting, you're getting a constriction of all the muscle systems. There are 3 muscle systems in the body. There's a smooth muscle that surrounds the veins and arteries, the lining of the lungs and digestive tracts. We're looking at some smooth muscle action right here. Anybody ever get cold hands when they're stressed? Anybody notice cold hands? That's a sign of stress. That's the vascular constriction. That's a squeezing of the nervous system, and then the blood's flowing more in the vital organs, and the hands get cold. Warm hands are definitely a place of relaxation. You also have skeletal muscle. So that's like your neck, you know, the what moves your body around. And then we have cardiac muscle, so we're looking at the cardiac muscle as well here. So you have those 3 muscle systems, and they're all affected by the autonomic nervous system, which just has those 2 branches that I was talking about. So it's pretty straightforward. It's really simple, but hugely complex, really, in the response. Okay. So that was a great question. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose unless you're exercising. And the other question that comes up during exercise is, you know, in Pilates, people learn a different breathing than they learn in yoga, and what's right. Well, they're all right. But when you're doing Pilates, you really are, I think they really preach the side breathing and keeping the core very tight. That's okay for Pilates, but we don't want to continue that all throughout the day. It was very restricted. You know, if you need to protect your core, then you need to tighten your muscles, and you're not going to be able to really breathe diaphragmatically. Yoga is diaphragmatic breathing, so it does the belly breathing. You have the inhale, inflate, exhale, deflate with yoga. And then a lot of the other exercise, when you're kind of getting into aerobics or weightlifting, on the exhale, still really pulling that belly button to the spine. On the exhale is going to really give you a more complete cycle, exchange of gas, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and make your body a little bit more efficient and not cut off that supply. Okay. What about?
Wish Chase get his license.
Well, she's got a child about to try. You all know her trigger points. You know her trigger points.
You talk about Sherman Raleigh for a minute.
That's so funny.
Think about how much more expensive the insurance is gonna be.
All Podolsky's on the phone.
That's great, though. And then we would probably want to touch on sleep for a minute. Everybody sleep great? Everybody wakes up rested? No. It is epidemic right now. I don't think I have any patients that come in that say, I sleep great.
I actually sleep great.
Awesome. So that's great. Do you just fall out because you're so exhausted?
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, I'm not really
Okay.
I just fall out.
Okay, that's good. Sleeping is a big deal. So doing this breathing, if you have trouble getting to sleep, this is a good thing to do. Most people, I find these days, are having a problem staying asleep. So they sleep for a certain amount of hours, and then they sort of come out of the sleep, and then they're like, oh, how many more hours do I have? And so what do you think that does to the nervous system when we're checking a clock and we're looking at how many more hours we have to sleep? We are revving up a little bit. So the goal is, there's a couple of things. You know, I know you've heard about this blue screen thing. Well, there's really something to it. So having your tablets or having your phones up to the moment you go to sleep is really something we try to discourage, because the state that you fall asleep in is the state that you sleep in. So the more revved up we are when we fall asleep, because some people will come in and say, well, I fall right to sleep, but I toss and turn, I never feel rested. The state you fall asleep in is the state that you sleep in. Yes?
Now, are you saying that because of the blue light?
Oh, I'm just saying being revved up. The blue light is part of it. The blue light is part of the stimulation of the brain. That's great getting specifics there, but it's also about thought process. You know, if you're answering emails and doing things, you know, before you go to bed, that was a dual thing. So if you've got, the blue light does activate the brain. And we want it to kind of calm down naturally. We want it to be able, when the sun goes down, your brain needs to kind of start to shut off a little bit. And the other thing is, most people have some sort of light in their room or clock that they're able to see when they wake up. we take the clocks out of the room. Have a alarm that you trust in another room, and when you start to come out of the sleep, because we have different. The REM cycle is like a coherent line as well. So as you start to come out of the sleep, you become aware, and then you've created a habit again for waking up and finding out how long you have to go back to sleep. Okay, so when we kind of eliminate the chance of you being able to check the time and having something that's trustworthy in another room that can wake you up, you start to create a new habit. And the new habit is hand on the chest, hand on the belly, and doing the deep diaphragmatic breathing, trying to really work on your exhale. That's going to kind of lull you back into sleep without you coming out and being fully awake. And really, sometimes, depending on the thought, a lot of people say that they think about something at work, and that trips the sympathetic nervous system, and all those chemicals kind of get into the body. Well, stress response is built for protection, so the sympathetic turning on of the nervous system revs us up. And it takes twice as long to calm down because we need to be saved quickly, but we need to kind of come down off of that high there slowly. So when we do have those thoughts, we're trying to create new habits at night that don't enforce the habit of switching on the sympathetic nervous system. This works. It takes a little bit of time, but it takes conscious effort and awareness, and then next thing you know, you're starting to come out of sleep and your hand on the chest and the hand on the belly and I do counting. I still, I use that all the time. I start to count to get any thoughts out of my head, and then I don't remember going back to sleep. So that's one little thing about sleep that could be pretty helpful.
Did you say, like the stimulation from the devices and stuff, how long before bedtime?
I did not say, but optimally an hour, but we'll take 30 minutes, but optimally as long as you can. Look, if you can disconnect for a couple hours, I mean, we really would recommend that for the nervous system, and just sort of be and just not be connected all the time. I think the nervous system is not able to handle everything that we're giving it, but definitely at least 30 minutes. Yeah, but the longer the better. The longer we can kind of unplug and sort of rest and restore. We're not giving our bodies time to restore these days. So that is important. We have to learn to honor our bodies and how we feel and not always be pushing through. We have masses of people coming in with adrenal fatigue and adrenal exhaustion, which is even worse. So we have to honor our bodies and rest when we need to and really restore. So these are ways to kind of plug in today and see if they're helpful, and they're cumulative. The more you do them, the more your body will respond. Okay? So thank you very much. I'm open for questions after. I know some people might need to get back, but I'm open. And Integrative, we have long hours. We work 8 to 8. Not all of us are there 8 to 8, thank goodness, but we do have late hours in the evening, and we have insurance people that if you have specific questions about something that's covered, you can call the number that's listed on the page, and we have the staff that can help you with that. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for volunteering. Okay.